From the Standing Stone Farm Studio right outside downtown Nashville, it's time for the most ridiculous sports podcast in the world. So sit back, relax, and listen as Bobby Butler and Brandon Bond crack open a cold one and talk all things hockey, pop culture, and complain about everyday situations. It's the Pucks Out Podcast on the Penalty Box Radio Network.
Welcome into the most ridiculous podcast of sports and pop culture. I'm Bobby. He's Brandon.
Hello.
You can find us on the three majors of social media at Pucks Out Pod. Now let's crack open this cold Mayday beer and let's get after it. As always, Pucks Out is powered by Mayday Brewery, the official beer, Pucks Out Podcast. Find them every Thursday doing some bingo and Tuesday singo. And on July 6th, that's a Thursday, if you didn't already know. Catch us there for bingo, and it's
more importantly
our boy's birthday.
More importantly, you know what I'm saying?
I was saving the best for last.
It's an unimportant birthday, but it's mine. You know what I'm saying? So appreciate it. Yeah, and what I decided. People keep asking me, "What do you want to do for your birthday? What do you want to do for your birthday?" I'm like, this is a lame 32 birthday. I'm trying to put in some work because I'm going to go in there with a focused mind, Bobby, and I'm going to drink like 9 or 10 beers. I'm sure people are going to. It was calculated on my part. It's like, oh, I'm going to go host bingo. A place where I'm going to have a microphone at a brewery on my birthday, dude. So like it was a cold, calculated move on my part. Hopefully we have as good of, we're definitely going to have a good time just by the people we're bringing alone to this. So
I almost wonder how down deep the rabbit hole goes. Do you think Dez was planning this 32 years ago? This exact situation?
I don't know. Maybe. She's not gonna benefit. She's not gonna benefit for the drink. That's way too.
She was making. Yeah, but it's about making a better
game
life
plan for me.
Kids.
That's a long shot bet that she's making there. The odds
we
were
can't
high.
prove that she didn't. We can't prove that she didn't.
That's accurate. That's accurate. We'll ask her on game night.
Yeah, but. The trick is, to make any birthday special. For this one, just call it your 32 minus 11 birthday. Boom, and just celebrate 21 again.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. I don't know if I think my 32-year-old body will still. I don't think it'll play along. It
won't get the message.
It will not cooperate with the game.
Yeah.
Is my thought. It might be like, hey, here you go, bud.
Something tells me we wouldn't make it to handlebars at the end of the night.
That is, we would save about $70-$80, but we would not have drunk bar food for the next 13 days to eat either. So it's a win-lose,
But all right, today we have got a lot of news from the inside of the NHL, and that is great to hear because lately, we're finally coming that time. We are about maybe two last weeks away from the NHL draft here in Nashville. We got some news from outside the NHL, the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Finals, the greatest playoffs in the world is set. Joke of the week. We're talking a little Quantumania. We've got a this or that and much, much more. How are you this week, buddy?
Doing pretty good, man. Obviously, as you said, we watched. I watched Quantumania, so we're going to discuss that. Really enjoyed that movie. Rearranged the studio, brother. As you can see, a little more flowy. I'm digging it. Got some, some as you see, some LED lights hung up here.
Nice.
But yeah, man, just hanging out. Had lots of fun in here. We also watched the Super Mario movie. Stephanie's a huge fan. She wore her Toad hat the entire time for the movie, so that was obviously pretty fun. What about you, man? How you doing?
Good, man.
Memorial Day weekend.
We just kind of hung out, didn't do much. The wife is traveling right now, so we hung out a little bit on Memorial Day weekend, cleaned the house a little bit. Other than that, she's out of town now. I'm meeting her. My brother-in-law and I guess that's what it's called. my wife's brother-in-law and I are driving down to Atlanta to meet my wife and her sister down there where they are to meet some of our own friends and just have a little Atlanta weekend. Might catch a Braves game, hit some bars. Yeah, other than that, been absolutely amazing. It's getting a little too warm for my taste now. I was sunburnt to hell last week from mowing, so just hoping that I get some good cloud coverage for today's mow. But don't forget to check us out on Patreon and Twitch to support the show for Fit Check. Let's do that real quick because we're both rocking some sweaters.
Yep.
Since I'm leaving for Western Canada and Alaska in about 2 weeks, I'm rocking the my Canucks jersey.
Nice.
Just Preds hat.
Just kept it the same, as I have each round for the Panthers. Maybe I'm their good luck charm. Went with the Panther sweater again. And then like you, I went with the Preds hat as we do have some Preds related news to discuss and talk about. So kind of went in a similar route that you did, brother.
Nice. And with that said, let's head to Inside the Boards.
Everything you need to know about what's happening on the ice. It's time for news from inside the boards.
Alrighty, we have got some news out of Nashville. The much anticipated by some, much thought would happen by others. John Hines is out as the Preds head coach. Andrew Brunette hired. He was the first goal scorer in Preds history. That's quite dope. And fun fact, the Preds social media team about 2 weeks ago, because what a lot of these social media managers do is they schedule tweets way ahead of time to come out, so they're not constantly having to do that every day. It was just a little like, hey, what's your favorite Preds jersey of all time? And it actually used a picture of Andrew Brunette in the old Preds jersey that they wore at the time. And this was scheduled before they even knew that he would be hired. So that was quite the coincidence. But yeah, I think that I like it. I don't know. I don't know what the contract situation is. I'm assuming this is kind of like a prove it deal. He's not an interim. So I'm assuming that they're just going to say, hey, maybe get some fresh blood in here and see how it goes.
Yeah, from what I read about him, I like you, not super familiar with his coaching profile. I did know that he, did the interim thing down in Florida for a bit, so I did remember him from that. They did a pretty good job there in Florida. I would imagine if you don't have Joel Quenneville lined up for that type of situation, that's a guy that probably could have won his job there. He did good getting some, from what I read, he did well getting some of those younger guys scoring. Those guys, there were a much higher expected goal than they thought they would be. So I'm hoping that's something that, nobody's been able to really do with the Preds is, yeah, we've had some good scoring seasons from Duchesne or Forsberg, and they both had really good seasons together, but it doesn't seem like it's all worked at once. So hopefully that's something that he can come in and do. I think that we talked about it, that it being necessary for, Trotz to get his guy in here.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there's any love lost between us and Hines. He was a middle of the tier coach. He wasn't bad. He did a lot with what he was offered. I just don't think that he was that guy to push you over the edge. A good stopgap. And so I think Andrew Brunette, a good option. I think that this is a good try. I think that it's something that we talk about. They didn't go to the coach house to find somebody. I
was about to bring that up.
We joke as much as we can, like, oh, they're just going to the coach house. And who were the first people clamoring to go get Gallant because he's available or somebody. We are just as guilty. So I respect this move. I think that it's a good opportunity for Trotz and Burnett to work in tandem, learning this together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
you took
I'm
the
for
words
it.
right out of my mouth. I was about to bring up the carousel situation. I think that Preds fans need to be prepared for a rebuild. Most rebuilds don't miss the playoffs by 1 or 2 points.
Right.
So let's not expect him to come out, and this isn't going to be a Cinderella story. I mean, it's hockey. We've got the number 8 seed who was 1 game away from not making the playoffs. I believe is going as the favorite against the number 1 seed in the West. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of parity in this league, and it wouldn't be far fetched if the Preds go out and maybe snag second or place in the division with a new coach. But let's not get our hopes up with this. But Maple Leafs finishing touches on contract for GM Brad Trevelyan will be the 18th GM in club history. I don't have the stats in front of me. I know that the Preds are in rare company with at this point now having 2, but for the longest time only having 1. Where is that in the is that? I mean, they're an old organization. I assume that's on par with teams like Boston, maybe.
I mean, it has to be. It was just a little snippet on the tweet talking about this, so I didn't delve into that further. I put it on there because I was going to talk to you about it. I mean, 18th doesn't. That sounds about right. It sounds low at first, but then you think about it. I mean, they're roughly little over 100 years old.
Yeah.
I mean,
so Boston Bruins, just the team that I just threw out, they've had 8, including Don Sweeney. Maybe I'll look up the Habs list of GMs, see if what comes up with them. Just kind of okay. Wow. The Habs also have 18. They're on their 18th right now. So
that sounds like about par for the course.
Thing.
Maybe try Detroit, and then we can try the Rangers and see, because obviously not as volatile in Boston, but probably
Detroit
not
has
as
had
old.
12.
Okay, so I mean, it seems like little higher than average. They're probably clamoring for a new GM quite a bit in those Canadian.
Well,
teams.
I mean, Boston's the same. I mean, I would say, I mean, Boston's only. They're both original 6 teams. Boston was founded in 1924. The Maple Leafs in 1917. So I mean, really, there's not much.
Yeah, not much
difference
difference
with the age of the teams. I think the Chicago Blackhawks
maybe
might
try
be
the
a good one as well.
Yeah, and the Rangers as well. See what we have.
Yeah, if you wanted
those 2 clubs,
I must typed in Chicago Black Sox GMs. That would have given me something not the right thing. So there we go. List of Chicago Blackhawks. They've had 10. They're not. Yeah, 10. Kyle Davidson was their 10th. They're not counting Bob Pulford as one. He was the interim. He was the interim 3 times. I would say that if he's the interim three different times in history, I would count him as 1 GM.
Maybe, yeah,
because he's not.
Rangers have had 11 since their inception, not including Conn Smythe. Conn Smythe built the first Rangers team, but was fired prior to the inaugural season. So I would say 12.
Okay.
Okay. So I mean, it's
I think so. 18 is, I think, on the heavy side, but I don't think it's like abnormally weird. It's not like the Washington Commanders quarterback list of quarterbacks throughout history.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about 5-6 years a GM, and some probably shorter, some probably higher, but that's around the average. So
yeah. And I would say, and I don't have the stats to back this up, but my gut feeling is that NHL GMs have a shorter career expectancy than the other major American sports, because they are so much more involved with the process, whereas with football, the owners have their hands in it a lot. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because the owners have their hand in the cookie jar so much with the NFL, they are recycling GMs so often. But it just feels like we hear more about GM changes in the NHL more than the NFL. But that could just be because we're NHL fans and we pay attention to more NHL news. But all right, let's next up. Sources saying Kyle Dubas will be the Penguins' next GM.
10.
However,
They've had 10,
I
and he'll be the 11th, by the way.
possibly. I was reading an article. I actually saw this last night, so that's why I looked up to see if you had confirmed it.
I have not.
He has not yet accepted the job. The Penguins said. Reports from some sources from within Dubas's camp is that he is debating on whether or not he is looking for his offers because he wants to try and get a better job than Pittsburgh. So now some other sources, unnamed sources from his camp, have also said that he is not a fan of the city and would rather not move his family there, which perfectly understandable.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Who knows what he's looking for.
So basically what you're saying is we actually can infer some information from this tweet as well. He will not be the St. Louis GM. I would have to imagine that is out of the picture as well.
If we see him and he's got a Band-Aid on his cheek, that might be where he wants to be.
That's true. But if it's a love or a hate for the city, I can't imagine that St. Louis rises for him. So, but either way,
I like to think that he wants to go to the Rangers, the Islanders, and he just tells his agent, "I want to be in New York," and he's like, "All right, well, I got you in Buffalo," and he's like, "Fuck."
He's like, it's better than Pittsburgh, he said. So either way, there will 100%. Be an 11th GM for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah. All right. For the first time, a player making $10 million plus a year will win the cup. Eichel for Vegas and Barkov and Bobrovsky for Florida. That says a lot. It says a lot about these guys. Someone making over $10 million has earned it. That's obviously a joke. They earned it in other ways, even if you don't win a cup. Sure. But one also thing I wanted to add to this was that there is a more than normal amount of former Buffalo players playing in this cup team that you could almost make up an entire roster, not roster, but
line or two
starting lineup. Well, yeah, make an entire line. I think it's the first three. You can make 3 lines of former Buffalo players, which says a lot about the talent they let go, man. Like, there's a reason why Buffalo is struggling still, and maybe it's because, again,
they forced themselves out.
Yeah,
I would like to.
Jack Eichel.
I would argue there has been some that have kind of advanced. We've had a couple that have been in the Stanley Cup, a couple that have advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. The big portion of this is just the advancement of it will become more and more common with the advancement of the salary cap and more players being there. I think it is just but agreed to everything else you said, that it kind of speaks to the makeup of a team, that a big $10 million contract, while great for you personally, is traditionally not conducive to setting up a team for a long-term run in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You need more you need more quantity over necessarily quality. Obviously there needs to be a good mixture of both. But you would rather have 10 pretty good guys rather than 5 really good guys and 5 guys, because that's where the differences are made on those lines. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. A little tidbit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one thing that we always hear, and it is true, but I think that this year more than anything, it showed that to make it to the Stanley Cup, you have to have that guy. You can make it far in the playoffs without that guy, and having a good supporting cast, and maybe not not superstars, but not an all-star. But to win a cup, I think you really need to have a guy like Bob, is like the way Bob has been playing, the way Eichel's been playing.
Well,
the way Tkachuk has been
it's
playing out of this world.
I was going to save this portion. I was going to save this point for the discussion, but since you've brought that up, it was Eichel. Eichel had 4 points in the Star Series, all assists, which is decent. There were 6 games, no goals. I feel like he did not even show up to what he could have done in that series. I think that he can step up more in this series, and I think it's Vegas's to lose for sure. But the same goes for Brandon Montour, who has 6 goals and 3 assists through this playoffs. 8 of those 5 goals and 3 assists, 8 of those points came in the Bruins series, and he had 1 goal in the Maple Leaf series. So he has not really done what he did in that first round. So I feel like both sides have some opportunity, to advance with some of their players that they haven't really got going in these past 2 series. So I'm interested to watch those 2 guys in particular because they were so on fire early on, and have really cooled off. I think that either of those 2 guys may be able to be an X factor. We'll have to see, but I'm in agreement with what you were saying.
Yeah. Let's move to outside the NHL.
Now that you know what's happening inside the boards, time for the rest of the headlines with news from outside the boards.
Celtics don't make history. I was excited to see that. I think last week I said that Celtics were going to make it a series. I did not think they'd win, and man, did they show up. They I believe it was that buzzer beater was it Tatum who got it? I think Tatum
Derek White
shot the 3-pointer, and it was a offensive rebound. Okay.
For Derek White.
I knew that
yes.
someone, I couldn't remember who actually shot the original. Okay, yeah. And it was absolutely insane. And I thought maybe they could ride that momentum. Celtics had a good season. It's Miami versus was it Denver? Correct? The Nuggets.
Denver. That is correct. The Nuggets.
Yeah. And I believe Denver's favored, but they were the 8th seed. Correct?
They were the 1 seed. So.
Oh, okay. Was it the other way around? Maybe Miami was the 8th seed.
I believe that is correct. Yes, they are making.
Okay, so I think I think ESPN got that infographic wrong because I definitely remember seeing it 8 underneath the Nuggets thing. So I think they just mixed up their.
I'm pretty sure. Now don't quote me. Let me go look. Because I don't want to make a fool of you as much as I love it. All right.
Yeah, I honestly don't know.
Yes, they were the 8 seed, and the Nuggets were the 1 seed. Okay. I was like,
okay, so yeah, I think ESPN just got their infographic wrong, or I was just dyslexic and read it wrong. Yeah. Either one could be right.
Well, let's go with ESPN being wrong.
But yeah. The odds 89% are on Denver. I think Denver is minus 380 to win. I haven't been paying attention that much. I think you said that the Nuggets were just a powerhouse, and
Jokic, Murray. I think they're just too dominant. The Heat are great. Jimmy Butler absolutely could will them to a series win. Caleb Martin has been playing fantastic for the Heat. I think that the Nuggets are just they're just too good. Nobody even Bam Adebayo can't handle Jokic in my mind. So I think it's Nuggets easy.
Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo could possibly be cut for his foot injury. He apparently signed a waiver in lieu of a physical. This is the first I'm hearing about this. What is up with this?
I know about as much as this, but there's talks about his toe or his ankle or something still being not ready to go. So could be cut. I don't know the contract implications. I was going to wait a little bit to, I don't want to dive too deep into this, Bob, because I'm sure in a couple weeks when the Stanley Cup playoffs are done, we're going to need these little nuggets. So if we just go straight
Yeah.
into the all of the Jimmy G stuff. We're not teasing it. So that's a long way for me to say I haven't really looked into it much past this.
Yep. Churchill Downs could pause racing if needed for an investigation into the death of 12 horses over the past month. Yeah, I would say that's not a could, it's a should. Something needs to be looked at there. That's absolutely asinine.
Yeah, the governing body itself can't shut it down, but has been working with the racing commission, that is, has been working with Churchill Downs and can make that recommendation, and it is expected that they would just comply with it. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I know that we had talked about some morality issues when it came to the horse racing, and so at very least, I want to make it clear that we are interested in it being better, right? Even if you're not interested in continuing to watch it yourself, we can both agree that it's not just going away just immediately. So better investigations, better, ability to track these things and know these things is definitely a good thing. So I felt like we needed to bring it up since we talked about the negative. Previous.
Is the Derby, is that run by Churchill Downs, or is that run by like a governing body that it's hosted at?
That I don't know.
I don't know how that works.
I would imagine it has
like,
some
could they
sort
say, I don't know if they could eventually say, hey, until you get this up, we'll host the Kentucky Derby somewhere else. I don't know how that works. I mean,
no. I think that I would imagine that it's a Churchill Downs hosted event that it's just become this, because it's different. It's not like there's some standard like 18-hole golf course. There's different links to the races, different requirements, different buy-ins. My thought would be it's run by Churchill Downs itself. When we went there the week after a Kentucky Derby one time, all of the merchandise is there. It's Kentucky Derby merchandise. It seemed as though it was made from them. But that being said, we bought a souvenir drink, and it had the Preakness schedule on it. So it may be some governing body that has some control, but they clearly cannot tell them to not race there. So maybe it is the higher level, and they can just be like, all right, well, we'll host our own horse races with hookers and blackjack or something. I don't know. So I don't know the specifics of too deep into the horse racing world.
Yeah. Joseph Newgarden wins the Indy 500 in thrilling fashion. Did not see it, but he is a Nashville native.
Yes, but he won it. He was losing on the last lap. A guy named Erickson was winning, and on the last lap there was a crash that caused a red caution, and they had to restart, and he beat him on the restart. So super dope. We saw him when we went, and he almost won. He had a good race. But always good to see a Nashville native win such a worldwide event like this. So
yeah. All right, and with that, we're going to move into our main topic, which is, of course, the Stanley Cup Final, which is set. We got the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Florida Panthers. Game 1 is Saturday, in what is going to be an absolutely packed, loud, rambunctious? Is that
rambunctious?
Rambunctious. I think I was mixing some of those letters up. Rambunctious. I don't even know what it's called. What is the arena called again? I don't remember now. Not AT&T, is it? I don't remember. Yeah, I am. I might have to just T-Mobile, not AT&T. T-Mobile Arena. So yeah, I'm excited for that. It's going to be super fun. I'm hoping that the series wraps up by the time I leave for the cruise. Which I believe doesn't
start until Saturday.
I leave on the 9th. So
Doesn't start
So
until Saturday.
unless they can play all the games,
Maybe.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
I might get to see 3 games, maybe. But yeah, I'm sure I can watch it. I mean, when we're in Alaska, I'm sure we can watch it, and I'm sure when we're in Canada, I can definitely watch it. So now that I think about it, it'll probably be easier to watch while I'm in Alaska and Canada.
They'll make you watch it. You're going to be forced to watch it. Even if it's like a ridiculously bad series, they're going to be like, no, you will watch. You will watch it.
Yeah.
You're trying to like look around and they're like, no.
Don't look at the glacier, look at the game. But yeah, so this was the matchup that I predicted last week. I still believe that Florida wins this. I don't know what the odds are right now. Florida feels, my gut feels like Florida should be favored. I don't think that's the case because, again, this is a 8 seed versus a 1 seed. Historically, 1 seeds are going to be favored, but the East was just such a good conference, and I think that, listen, Vegas is a powerhouse. Vegas, I would not be surprised if Vegas wins this. I would not be surprised if we're sitting here and Vegas wins in 5. But Florida is just so good. In the East, and it was so good that I think Florida wins this in 6 games.
Yeah, I want to lean towards Florida as well. Every time I haven't, they have shown up and shown me why I'm completely wrong. So everything tells me, yeah, there's no way they lose this series. So it's almost like I'm leaning the other way because of that. But no, I think Florida wins it. But what I am worried about is not worried about, but just thinking about Florida's been on a long layoff, man. They have not played a game of hockey since 5/24 and will not play one until June 3rd. That's a substantial time period to not play hockey. Being on the road, however, can be advantageous to you. You know, your family's not there. You're at the hotel. You're only thinking about hockey. That's something I think we need to think about.
Yeah, so I was listening to NHL radio yesterday in the car, and they had like their in-house stats guru guy, and they were talking about this. And he said that historically, and he said he threw out anything before 1990 because hockey's changed. It's kind of just the stat. It's hard. It's not good to look at stats from a different era of hockey.
So what he means is those stats went against what he was talking about. So he tossed those out.
No, he did at the end. He did talk about those stats. But for all of his stats, anything on his website, everything he does professionally, he never includes anything before 1990 now. But he did at the end, and he did say for this instance, the stats before 1990 also corroborated what he said now. That when teams have more than 2.5, that after 2.5 days, the rest doesn't matter. That if one team has a rest for 3 days and one team has a rest for 2 days, the team that rested for 3 days is disadvantaged. If both teams have a rest of more than 3 days, or 2.5 days, technically is what he said, then there is zero statistical advantage for any or disadvantage for either team in Stanley Cup playoffs history since 1990. And I think he said before 1990, it was like 2.67, something like that, but it was pretty much the same.
I wonder the parameters though, because that's a longer layoff than you would typically get. You know what I'm saying? Is this layoff time, was it comparative? Like doing the ones that, this team had to wait, 2 extra days compared to the team that had to wait, 4 days or whatever. You're saying there's no difference to them as they've had the rest time. Well, he was saying, so what he went into different.
Was, and one of the, well, 9 was actually the number he used. So I'm glad you asked that.
I don't know if 9 is
one of the stats was
yeah, go ahead.
That, and he threw out a bunch. Again, this was a very number-centric thing. I didn't pick up everything because then I was in the car. Couldn't really find it again and write it down. But He said, if I think he used Toronto, or I think maybe it was Boston or something. Boston swept a team a while back, and they had about a 9-day rest. The other team went to 7 games. Because of TV schedule, they then had to wait about 3 or 4 days after Game 7 to start the next series.
Okay.
So the team that won that series
Stanley Cup final
was about. This was, I believe, going into the Stanley Cup Conference Finals. He all of his stats were for the Stanley Cups and for the Stanley Cup playoffs. He said he was actively working on Stanley Cup Finals in particular. That because it's a much smaller pool, it's hard to get.
It's hard to
data's
get
a little
the
different.
numbers.
He also said that the COVID Cups really also threw things into whack as well, and he doesn't know if he wants to use those in his numbers or yet. But the team that has 9 days off versus a team that has 3 or 4 days off, he saw no statistical deviation between advantage disadvantage, but teams that had maybe he found one that had 7 days off and a team that had 2 days off. The team that had 2 days off did have a statistically higher advantage. So whatever it is, whether it's the bodies, that's recovery time. I guess at that point at 9 days, or you're doing run throughs, you're doing walkthroughs. By then, because
but that's not game
3
speed.
or 4 days, you're not really doing full walkthroughs.
Yeah, that's not 100%. Game speed though. Who am I to argue with the guy that is on the radio? I mean, he's a step above us in levels of, if a guy on TV has something against what he said, then I'm going with the TV guy. But we're just lowly podcast guys, so I have to defer to him. It's legally obligated in the just hierarchy of the journalism caste system. I am just a podcast. Yeah. Who am I to argue with this guy that's on Sirius XM? You know what I'm saying? I'm not on Sirius XM. Yeah. And apparently he has time to compile numbers and research, and I don't do any of that. So
get paid for it.
So I'm going to go ahead and say, Bob, I don't really care what all this guy's actual numbers say. My gut tells me something different. And I'm parroting that information because that's called confirmation bias. Okay. So get that through your little skull. Is I'm going to believe what I want to believe because, no, that makes a lot of sense though. These are professional. I mean, what I'm thinking of is, that's a long time to not play hockey. Not even including the fact that these are professional hockey players that have done nothing but play hockey their entire life. They come out rusty for a period. It changes nothing. So I can see how that
back in game shape. Yeah,
exactly. So I can see most certainly how that happens. I do have an answer for you on odds. The Vegas Golden Knights are minus 133 to win the series. Plus 110 for the Panthers. You can get the Panthers sweeping for. It had some specifics on that. There we go.
That's got to be
Panthers
plus 900
plus 1,300 for a Panthers sweep and plus 1,100 for a Vegas sweep. I would say this right now. I think it's much more likely for a Florida sweep than there will be for a Vegas sweep, no matter who wins the series.
Yes.
Some fun stats that I have. What Florida definitely needs to do, what they haven't really done. I mean, they've done it, but not as at a high clip as other teams. Of their 50 goals this playoffs, now granted shorter time frames in some of these series, 50 goals, only 31 of those came in the 5-on-5. So really heavily relying on those power play goals. And if a Vegas team comes out and is more disciplined, can really hamper that ability to score goals like they have. Vegas, however, is the top scoring team of the playoffs. Now, granted, they're the team that has gone the farthest with 17 games played. but they have 62 goals scored,
Yeah.
and but their 2 losses to Dallas, they've had they had some really difficult goals scored on them, and so. And I think that's what Florida has really excelled at this playoff series. It's just scoring those goals in times that they need them, seeming effortless. I just have a hard time disagreeing with your assessment that Florida wins this cup. I wish that it was a little better. Little better odds, I'd maybe go put some money on Florida to win the series, but I think you're probably better off just betting Florida individually.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know if I take Florida game 1. I think Vegas comes out hot game 1, but I do think I would take Florida game 2, though. I like them in game 2. I think if they can leave Vegas 1-1 split, then they put themselves in a good spot.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's happened. But all right, let's see here. Let's move into joke of the week.
The weird.
Corey Perry.
See, I don't like that. Wild. I think the first read was a good one. Now I'm overthinking it. Outlandish.
Each sixth chick sat on a stick. Little tongue twister.
And downright dumb.
Kidding me.
It's time for the joke of the week.
All right, you found this one. This was originally going to be in our pop culture topic. We moved it into here. What do we got?
Lord of the Rings Gollum with a comically bad release. Didn't even really know this game was coming out until a couple of weeks ago, and watched the trailer, and the trailer wasn't bad. It had an opportunity, if you like those kind of games, a stealth platformer-esque type game. If you like those kind of games, it had a real opportunity from my understanding. Probably not for me specifically, but you attach it to the Lord of the Rings IP, and it's going to generate some buzz. It was apparently it's comically bad. You said you were going to watch some gameplay of it. Godspeed to you, sir. From what I've seen, just screenshot wise, it's bad. And I'm not sure how much you've seen on it, but the DLC, you've heard some of the DLC that they have, right? The in-game lore.
No, I have not.
Okay. The in-game lore that is included in every game. I'm going to Red Dead Redemption or, GTA or whatever. Shadow of War is a good example. You can go read about the lore of it, right? I'm sure you've been playing Zelda, Breath of the Wild. I'm sure that there's plenty that you can read. The lore is locked behind DLC. You gotta pay for the lore.
Wow.
You gotta pay for the lore.
Wow.
So
what the
assuming that you don't have the internet, though you've downloaded this game and you can't look up Lord of the Rings lore, for goodness sake. You gotta pay for that. If you want the elves or whatever to be speaking Elvish, you got to pay for that, Bob. Otherwise, it is not going to be immersive for you. What an absolute joke it is. I've heard really, really bad things. You've seen some poor screenshots. It was a cash grab. I mean, the information from the developer, they've already apologized. It was so bad, but from what I've heard, they haven't reversed the DLC money. They're like, my bad, guys, my bad.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, have a good.
This is an ongoing issue right now in the This is an ongoing issue in the gaming community with big name devs. If you look back and 2020 with Cyberpunk 2077, that was supposed to be the headlining game launch for the next gen consoles. It was so badly broken. I'm trying to think what else. Jedi, Star Wars Jedi Survivor was like, that was a AAA blockbuster release. It was so badly broken.
Well, and then you have
what's happening is these.
Well, I was going to say
ahead.
you have the opposite. You know, if we're gonna harp on the bad, which is what we're talking about here, it's the bad. You have the opposite in something like Elden Ring, which I've heard has recently just passed on a season pass.
Yes,
decided to go no season pass to do a bigger expansion. Good. I'm not saying extra stuff in the game I'm not willing to pay for. I get it. Things cost money. People made this, but it is so ridiculous. They just expect you. They expect you to pay for words about Lord of the Ring, about Tolkien. Tolkien would roll in his grave if he found out you had to pay extra money to his appendages are extensive. Why would you pay money for this? It's sad because it makes you appreciative of Portkey games doing at least a semi good job with Hogwarts Legacy. You know, there was definitely things that could have been done better and things that you wanted, and hey, this wasn't as good, but at least it was a fun game that I have found myself on occasion popping back into and playing, flying around, doing a whatever or another. So it is very frustrating that there's literally anything in the world from Lord of the Rings you could do, anything in the world you could do, and you do this. You could have remastered. You could have remastered the old Return of the King game and sold 100 million copies, dude.
Yeah. And one of the issues is that you've got these companies like CD Projekt Red and I'm trying to EA Sports, which are all owned, which are part of these big conglomerates, and they know that gamers are going to buy these games. They know they're going to be pre-ordered. They're going to get their money. They'll have to put out an apology. It'll get washed under the rug, and it'll be rinse and repeat. But if you look at what Nintendo did, Nintendo said, "Listen, we cannot keep up with the next gen graphics. And this push for graphics has made it so that playability is almost you can't play these games sometimes on release." Nintendo delayed Tears of the Kingdom, the brand new Zelda game, almost 2 years because they wanted to make it playable in the great game. They did not force their devs into working, 24-hour shifts to get this game out because the shareholder said, "Hey, we need to get this game out in this quarter to make profits." And guess what? Tears of the Kingdom is now being seen as one of the best games to ever been released in the history of gaming.
Yeah, I think it's a big difference.
Going to sweep the awards.
It's a big difference for Nintendo. Let's be honest. That's their bread and butter. If they mess that up, that like you said, with all of these games and all these issues going onto the Switch, Hogwarts Legacy, they can't run. You mess up a Zelda game and it's the death of the Switch, right? People, the niche gamers are going to continue to use it, but those casual fans are done. Yeah. That's why I buy the Switch was for Zelda, and Zelda doesn't work and it's bad. I'm done playing it. So, I'm with you. I mean, I agree that what's the old statement? A rushed game is bad forever. While a delayed game, still has a chance to be a great game. So, it's very frustrating. And it's frustrating with those games and those developers that are doing so much with so little, that it's possible. You know what I'm saying? It's so that's also part of the problem. It's not like we can't see it, being done, because we have day one releases that do great on Game Pass, meaning a bunch of people are going to be playing this game with no, intention of generally purchasing it. So it'll be interesting to see where the gaming industry goes. I mean, we're headed towards transactions and loot boxes, and then there's kind of been a push against that. So you hope that that push continues and people actually will be willing to spend money on complete games.
100%. Let's move into our pop culture discussion. We're talking Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. I saw it in theaters what feels like 2 months ago, maybe. You just watched it, so I'll do my best to kind of remember a lot. But as someone who freshly just watched it, what are your first couple thoughts on the movie?
Super sad about Jonathan Majors, really. If we're being I'm so sad that he's a terrible person.
Yeah.
Because he was fantastic with Kang. I know that we got a few more things after this, so I'll keep my, kind of discussion brief. Love Kang, love what he brought into the story. I really, really liked Quantumania. I like the concept of it. I like the fact that Bill Murray was in it. There were so many cool things that I liked about Quantumania. Thought they did a really good job, and really liked the Kang story. I really enjoyed him being stuck there, and how's he going to get out? How's he going to escape? But we got to see him in his suit. We got to see what he was capable of. So I really liked it. Personally.
I thought it was, I mean, I'm not going to say, it definitely wasn't like, top 3 MCU, but it was a very fun movie. It was, I left there feeling like it was a classic MCU movie.
I think it moved the trilogy of the Ant-Man trilogy up for me as a total package. If we're just talking groups of MCU movies, with a good, strong third, really kind of moved it up with me, because I loved Ant-Man 1. Ant-Man and the Wasp was pretty good to me as well, but I really liked Quantumania. I think it was a good trilogy of superhero movies, and I love the concept of this one, and having the whole family involved. And also, I wanted to say I am not a fan of Hope Van Dyne's short hair. Just not a fan of the of the Halle Berry haircut.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to remember all the scenes. Yeah. Bill Murray was amazing. I'm trying to remember. There was what is his name? Wow, I'm drawing a blank on the dad's name right now.
Hank Pym.
I don't know why but the actor in my head, I keep
Michael Douglas.
thinking Dennis Quaid for some fucking reason.
Michael Douglas.
Okay. I thought Michael Douglas absolutely killed it in that movie. I thought that all the roles were well done. It did the comedy moments right. It didn't like overuse the comedy. It kind of complimented it. Paul Rudd was absolutely amazing. It's one I would definitely watch again. But yeah, you're right. Obviously Jonathan Majors is going to be recast. I don't know what the outcome was of the trial, but like it's pretty bad. He's going to be recast. Who they get, I have no idea. Luckily, as a time traveler, they can, it's with the multiverse. It's easy to explain why it's a different person.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I did see this thing where it was like Jonathan Majors it's a skit. Somebody's like, Jonathan Majors talking to his agent. It's like, come on, man, look what Ezra Miller with the Flash. And then it pans to his agent and him saying, I wish you did what Ezra Miller did. He just kidnapped some people. Jonathan, you hit a white lady.
That's bad. Jesus. All right, let's move into some this or that.
All right, time to cast your vote. Vote your cast. Choose your pick. Pick your choice. Make a decision and take a side for this or that.
What do we got?
Okay, so I created this one myself. I normally look something up and take it. Now, I may need your help altering it to make it more in the middle, but I think it's pretty in the middle for what I did. So, you spend 30 minutes in shark infested waters. It's very deep. You can't see the bottom. No risk of drowning. You have no cuts, so there's no blood or anything. You'll be picked up by a boat at the 30-minute mark, or you have 3 hours on a riverbank of crocodile-infested waters, and at that 3-hour mark, a guide finds you, but then you have to walk 6 miles back to camp. Now, you will also, while you're no risk of drowning, you do have to swim. You know, you're going to be tired after the 30, but you're not going to drown. You know, your body's just going to keep going. All right. No brainer for you. Go for it.
Yeah. Shark infested waters. I mean, fuck a 6-mile hike. That's right off the bat. If you had asked me 30 minutes in shark or just a 6-mile hike, I'd probably still pick shark attack, honestly. I mean, that's just right off the bat.
Okay.
Sharks, you know, shark attacks are not as common as the movies make it seem.
Sure.
They're only going to attack you if they're very curious. If you go into their, like, if you are in their den, or if you attack, or if it's a feeding frenzy. If you are just floating there, even if it's like where they are currently kind of are, and you just kind of go there, for the most part, statistically, they're not going to bite you, because they don't like humans. They bite humans out of curiosity, but they don't like us. They don't like the way that the sun bounces off our skin, the way it looks. We don't look appetizing to them. I believe that the yearly average of shark attacks is like 80 or something like that.
You are severely...
only about 5 of them.
I don't think that you're going to get attacked by the shark. That's not the point of it. The lassophobia is real. Sitting out there in the middle of the ocean.
The what?
Not the fear of that open water, not necessarily yours. But in this instance, you don't know at the 3-hour mark you're getting rescued. Is in my mind. You know what I'm saying? That's just so yeah, I don't know if that changes things, but the unknown of being in that water, thinking you're going to drown, thinking you're going to get eaten by sharks would be crazy to me, because you can't see anything. Like, at least I'll know.
Okay.
When I'm getting
eaten.
So
that obviously changes the dynamic so severely, not knowing you're going to get rescued, because on the other hand,
it does. I guess it
doesn't. On a riverbank, because you don't have to be rescued from a riverbank. You can just walk off a riverbank.
Right.
So the question is now, am I being stranded in the ocean to die, or stranded on a riverbank? Because that then is where I'm concerned, because the crocodile-infested waters, they will attack you for fucking fun. Crocs are going to come after you. You're dealing with something a little bit more passive versus something that's going to be aggro.
I don't know if they're
gonna.
Quick. I don't know if they're definitely gonna. If they're hungry, for sure. Yeah, I guess that does change the question.
There's a difference between water.
So let's say
there's a difference between waters with alligator and crocodile, or waters with crocs, and crocodile-infested waters. Because infested waters means there is a lack of food, because they're all eating food, so they're going to eat whatever they can get. I think that 3 hours is such a long time to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
That, and again,
now, it's not
if I don't know that I'm being rescued,
to be fair, you don't have to just sit there and let the croc come up at you. You know, you're allowed to scurry away from the crocodile. What I'm saying is basically just on the riverbank.
I ain't scurrying for 3 hours.
Well, what I'm saying is you don't just get to like sprint into the woods the other way. Like, there's more danger there. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I guess the unknown definitely plays into it, right? And in which case the end mark doesn't. I honestly, even with the knowing that you're done after 30, I still don't think I could do it, dude. I just don't. I mean, I think that I'm going still with the 3 hour, with the 3 hours on the riverbank. And even if we moved it down to a 4 or a 2 mile hike or whatever, I think I'm good with the hike, bro. Like I'll just battle a crocodile. You know what I'm saying?
So yeah, I think that I'm still, even with, again, it's hard to say, but I think even with the not knowing you're getting rescued, I think I'd still take 30 minutes in shark infested waters, only because sharks only gather in places where there is a lot of food, which means that they're going to be following schools of fish, which means there's going to be boat traffic in that area. Because in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm going to probably be in a shipping lane, so I may not know if someone's coming, but I feel good about it, and it's only 30 minutes.
Honestly, that is now minutes, this is where you've gone completely wrong. In the history that cruise ships, I just saw a kid jump off of a boat at night in the ocean on a dare with like a buoy and never seen again.
That's stupid.
Yes, exactly. In
the
first history
off, at nighttime,
cruise ship,
100. If it's nighttime, I'm taking the Crocs every time.
Yeah, well, even so, you should still.
Nighttime's a whole different thing.
If you don't know you're going to live, you should still take the other, because you're generally not going to be found. It's essentially like your head covers 1 square foot in a square mile, and there's like 2 million square head sections in a square mile. I think in the history of cruise ships, since their inception, like something like 300 people have fallen overboard, and like 45 or something have ever been found. And like some military dude was like, that's a pretty good number to find, honestly.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. So
now, yeah, this is definitely a hard one. I think that going in, as listen, it's hard to keep adding hypotheticals to it, like, oh, well, we don't know this, but if as podcasters, with the information that we are given, I am picking shark infested waters, knowing that it's only 30 minutes, knowing that I am not skedaddling around for 3 hours avoiding Crocs. I'm not. It's not happening. I didn't play soccer. I'm not running for 3 hours long.
I'm skedaddling.
That ain't happening, bro.
I'm skedaddling.
Like 30 minutes. I'm
becoming friends. I'm befriending them.
I know how to dead man float for 30 minutes. Like, you just dead man float for 30 minutes. And even if I'm like accepting death, like, well, I guess this is the way to go. At least I'm out here in the Caribbean, hopefully, getting.
That's what I was going to say. That's where I thought you were going. I thought you were going with my knowledge as a podcaster of where I would be before. I thought you were going to be like, I was going to be on a cruise ship and fall off. Like, it was going to at least be dope before I fell in the water. If I'm on a shark infested water bank, I'm most likely like doing some sort of dumb hike or something anyway. Like, why would I even care? Like, I will get eaten by I actually escaped to the riverbank to get eaten by the crocodile because this thing was so boring, and I'm done with it. So, okay, that would make sense as well.
Yeah. I do think that this question, I think this question is a good insight into your head of why you don't go on cruises and why you refuse to do riverboat tours when we're in New Orleans.
The riverboat tours, absolutely, is because
I'm sorry, airboat tours.
Airboat tours, it is first of all, I'm just not generally a big boat guy as is. You know that about me. So that's right off the bat, not a huge fan. But the airboat thing is 100%, because best case scenario in the airboat is
I'm with you.
I go on an airboat tour, okay, and I see some crocodiles or whatever. That's cool. Don't get me wrong, it's dope. But worst case scenario,
I think it's gators
is
there.
I get eaten or whatever, and so that's definitely the cruise ship thing is really like
I wouldn't say that's worst case. Real quick, I wouldn't say that's worst case. That's medium case. Worst case is they take your legs and you still live.
I don't know that that's accurate at all.
Just eat me, bro.
No, I'm totally good with hanging out in a wheelchair, dude. No, I do not. That does not speak for me. I'm good. I'm good with
what
getting
about
like
arms?
a hover
Okay,
round.
They take arms and legs.
Dude, that means that all y'all dummies are just having to feed me and drink beer and stuff for me. Like, I'm good, dude. Like, you can't take my penis. I'm out. I'm out on the penis. You chop it off.
Right. Yeah. They're like, they didn't take anything. They're like, well, did he survive? Actually, yeah, he's all intact except for his penis. The gator only took his penis. The only thing he took.
The gator was rude. So that's funny.
But all right, let's move into some what are you binging? I don't even honestly sometimes I forget what we have drops for and don't. I don't think we have. No, we don't.
I don't think we have a binge.
So I've been streaming a lot of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I've been playing a lot of Zelda Breath of the Wild, sorry. It's an amazing game. It came out about 6 years ago. Finally, I borrowed my brother-in-law's Switch to play it. I'm excited when I get back from vacation. Hopefully I should have it beat, and I will be then playing some Tears of the Kingdom, which is,
Nice.
we talked about earlier, but it is the fastest selling game in the history of Nintendo. It sold like, I believe 10 million copies in the first 3 days.
Amazing.
Which is, when you go back to like 2009, I think Super Smash Bros. Had the record at 1.9 million copies in the first 3 days. So that is just insane record to beat. And it is glorious. I'm really loving it. What about you?
That's awesome. I can't wait till Stephanie lets me get her a Switch. I never got into Zelda. It was never really my thing. She loves it though, so I would really love to get her that game. I've heard such good things about it. So that's
right
awesome.
now is the time because all the consoles are on super discount.
Okay, well then maybe I'll have to just do it against her will. It's great. It's good. That's good for a marriage. It's just doing things your spouse doesn't want you to do.
It's a consolation gift. Yeah, it's a consolation gift for your birthday.
Exactly. For me, I don't know if I can't. I've never heard of this story, but I don't know if you've ever heard of the Candy Montgomery story. Essentially, she was this housewife in the 80s in Texas, and had an affair with a husband of a friend, and this it eventually culminated in her murdering this other housewife. Well, it was a self-defense trial. So, but it was with an axe, and and she axed her like 41 times. Well, Jessica Biel did a Hulu series called Candy, like 2021 or something. And then the same story Elizabeth Olsen is doing, and I'm sure you've seen this on HBO, the Love and Death with Elizabeth Olsen. That's the same storyline. I'm not saying, but not saying you've seen it, but you probably have seen the advertisements for it. Super cool story. I bet you and Megan would enjoy watching it together. So
cool.
So I take that. It's a mini series, so it's just like one little season, but it is very intriguing. Just didn't think I'd be really interested. Both shows are the same story, but kind of a different style. So there a lot of people are comparing both. Which one's better? Both have pretty decent casts. So we are finishing up Love and Death right now. So that's what we've been watching.
Nice. Let's move into what's snapping your stick.
Bobby and Brandon are about to find out exactly what snaps their sticks.
All right. We may have talked about this. I don't know if we talked about what's snapping your stick, but I'm sure we talked about it during, previous years. And that is people making big deals about whether or not teams touch the conference championship trophies in the NHL. I think it's silly. Listen, if the players want to be superstitious or even a little stitious, that's on them. Up to them completely. But I think that fans and the radio spending hours talking about like analytics of if it actually helps or not, or getting mad at teams for doing it. I think it's so asinine to me because they've already won it. It's not like they're going and touching it before they win, which even then I really couldn't care less about. But it just seems like such a waste of time when there are other things to talk about. Honestly, I just don't get the discourse over it.
Love it. I don't know that we have talked about that specifically on Snaps Your Stick. I'm sure we've touched on it other places. Mine is, it's not like a huge complaint, but it's just weird. There's a Game Pass weekly quest to play an online game of NHL 22, which is fine. They want all these games that are on there to be played or whatever. No big deal. Except for Game Pass has NHL 23. So, why do I got to go play an online game of the older version? If you only had 22, no problem.
Yeah.
No harm, no foul. But, why not play an online game of the new one? I just didn't get it. I was just that's dumb.
That almost feels like a bot problem. I feel like a lot of those are randomized maybe, and it's play an online game of this, and it just so happened to come up NHL 22, or somebody wrote it and just
let me hit you with this, Bob.
It didn't see 23.
Well, let me hit you with this. I would normally say I agree with that, except for it was play an online game of an EA game, which are one of the only few games on Game Pass that you are not able to play via cloud. So I had to download the entire game to play that one online game just so I could then uninstall that game that I'm not going to play again. So I'm thinking maybe download numbers or something like that. Bot could absolutely be the case, and maybe, it just picked that one randomly because it's on Game Pass. So I'm hoping that's what it's like, and not just, let's get a fake number of downloads for NHL 22. Though why would you ever want somebody downloading NHL 22 when your 23 is there? Don't you want to play in the, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't work for a Lord of the Rings
golem. I almost think that's just someone just mistyped or something.
What am I? Yeah, exactly. Maybe hopefully so.
But all right, guys, that that wraps up this week's episode of the Pucks Out Podcast. For Brandon, I'm Bobby. It has been amazing to have you all here, and we'll see you all again next week.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Pucks Out Podcast. To see what other ridiculousness the guys are up to, check them out on Twitter and Instagram @PucksOutPod.